Hey everyone, welcome back. We're diving deep today into Ritz Group Holdings.
Interesting company.
Yeah, they're trying to do something really interesting in finance, and I think it's going to be relevant to a lot of you listening.
Yeah, their mission is to kind of shake things up.
Yeah.
They've got a pretty solid background. They've actually been around for like 38 years,
Wow.
connecting entrepreneurs with capital through their nonprofit arm. And now they're like, oh, wait a minute. What if we took all this experience and jump into Web3?
Yeah, that was the thing that kind of blew me away when I first heard about them. They're not just dipping their toes in the water. They were like going all in on this.
Yeah. And that's what's intriguing. Like, they're offering everything from like helping companies navigate all those tricky regulations and licensing to actually having their own trading exchange and marketplace.
That's a pretty big deal.
It's a lot. And it's not just for the Wall Street guys either, right?
Mhm.
They're working with everyone from entrepreneurs trying to get their ideas off the ground to big funds and even family offices.
That's what I like about it. It seems like they're trying to democratize access to this world of finance, which can be really intimidating.
Exactly. And they're not limiting themselves to just one type of offering either. They're dealing with Reg A plus DCF and even state exemptions. Like, they've got the whole spectrum covered.
Okay, so we're talking about democratizing capital. Let's get to the heart of it, the in-trust NFT concept, specifically these Stockblock NFTs. Can you break that down for us? What exactly is that?
Okay, so think about it like this. You're buying a piece of a company, just like you would with a normal stock certificate. But instead of that old school paper, you get a digital token that represents your ownership. That token is the Stockblock NFT, and it lives on the blockchain.
Okay, so instead of having this physical document, I've got this digital token that says I own a piece of the company. But how does that work in practice? Like, what's the process if a company wants to issue these Stockblock NFTs?
So a company decides they want to raise capital, and they're like, all right, let's issue some Stockblock NFTs.
Correct.
So Ritz Group Holdings steps in, and they act as a custodial trust, meaning they hold the actual stock, and then they mint these NFTs on their exchange.
Okay.
And here's the really cool part. Smart contracts govern everything.
Smart contracts, I've heard that term thrown around, but I'm not sure I totally get it.
Okay, imagine a vending machine. You put your money in, select your snack, and boom, it dispenses your snack right.
Yep.
A smart contract is similar. It automatically executes certain actions when certain conditions are met.
Oh, okay.
So in this case, the smart contract governs the trading of these Stockblock NFTs and even allows for fractional ownership, which is a big deal.
Okay, so let's say I'm someone who doesn't have a ton of cash to invest. Does that fractional ownership mean I can buy like a tiny sliver of a company's stock?
Exactly. You could own a fraction of a share, even down to a single share's worth through a Stockblock NFT. That's like slicing a pizza into really tiny pieces so everyone can have a taste.
So that's what they mean by democratizing capital. It's making it easier for more people to get involved.
That's the goal.
Okay, so that makes sense. What happens down the line if the company decides to exit, either go public or get acquired? Do I just hold on to this digital token forever?
No. When the company exits, the issuer pays the trust Ritz Group Holdings the initial per-share offering price, and then they distribute those proceeds to everyone holding the NFTs.
Got it.
The NFTs are burned, meaning they're taken out of a circulation, and it all happens on the blockchain, so it's totally transparent and traceable every step of the way.
So there's a clear path to getting my money back and potentially making a profit if the company does well. That's good to know. But is this all legal? The world of NFTs can feel a little bit like the Wild West sometimes, and I'm always a little wary of anything that sounds too good to be true.
You and me both.
Yeah.
That's why Ritz Group's focus on compliance is so important. They've made it clear that they believe these Stockblock NFTs are securities, which is different from how some platforms try to categorize crypto tokens.
Since they're playing by the rules, it sounds like they're really trying to do this the right way.
They are. They're operating within the existing regulations.
Okay, but I'm still curious about why go through all this trouble? Like, what's the advantage of using these Stockblock NFTs over traditional ways of investing in private companies?
Well, for one, it has the potential to simplify things a lot. Imagine you're trying to manage stock certificates for hundreds or even thousands of investors. It's a logistical headache. With these Stockblock NFTs and smart contracts, it's a much smoother process.
It's way less paperwork.
Way less.
Yeah, especially for someone like me who's not a Wall Street expert. The whole traditional world of private equity could be pretty intimidating. This sounds like it could be a much more accessible entry point for everyday investors.
It is, and that's part of the idea to simplify and democratize access to these investments that were traditionally out of reach for many.
Okay.
But it's not just about making things easier for investors. It also has the potential to really benefit the companies that are issuing these Stockblock NFTs.
Okay, how so?
Think about traditional fundraising. It's often limited to a specific pool of investors, maybe just those in your geographic area or in your industry. But with Stockblock NFTs, you can potentially reach a global audience, anyone who is interested in your company and sees the potential.
So it's like opening up this whole new network of potential investors.
That's the idea, connecting companies with a much wider pool of capital.
It's really powerful, especially for like startups who are just trying to get off the ground.
Exactly.
This is really fascinating. I'm starting to see how these Stockblock NFTs could be a win-win for investors and companies. You mentioned earlier that Ritz Group sees these as a major game changer. Can you expand on that? Like, what makes them so revolutionary compared to traditional methods?
One of the biggest advantages is how it can simplify managing a large number of stockholders, especially compared to those traditional exchanges that use SPVs, the special purpose vehicles.
Right.
Imagine trying to track ownership and manage all the paperwork for thousands of individual investors.
It sounds like a mess.
It's a nightmare. But with these Stockblock NFTs, everything is streamlined and managed securely on the blockchain.
So instead of having mountains of paperwork, it's all done digitally and automatically.
Exactly. And that efficiency can translate into cost savings for both the company and the investors.
Okay.
It's about simplifying cap table management, making fractional ownership easier, and basically making the whole investing process less of a hassle.
I got to be honest, I came into this deep dive a little bit skeptical.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to see the potential here.
Yeah.
It really feels like we're at the beginning of a major shift in how we think about owning equity in companies.
It does raise the question, though, doesn't it? Could this be the future of investing?
That's what I want to find out. And we've got a lot more to unpack about Ritz Group Holdings and their approach to democratizing capital.
Oh, yeah. We've only scratched the surface here.
So stay tuned because we're going to keep diving deep into these Stockblock NFTs and what they could mean for investors like you. Stick around. Okay, so we've talked about how these Stockblock NFTs work the role of Ritz Group Holdings and the potential benefits for companies and investors. But before I go all in, I want to understand the risks. What are some of the downsides? What do I need to be aware of?
You're right to be cautious. Every investment has risks, and Stockblock NFTs are no different.
Of course.
One of the biggest things to consider is the inherent risk of investing in private companies. We're talking about early-stage businesses that haven't really been tested by the market the way that, big public companies have. So there's always a higher chance of things not going as planned, and you could lose your investment.
Okay, so even with the blockchain and all the security measures, there's still that fundamental risk that comes with any investment.
Exactly.
Anything else?
Yeah, another big one is regulatory uncertainty. Governments around the world are still trying to figure out this whole crypto and blockchain thing.
It changes so fast.
Right, so there's always a chance that new rules could come into play that might impact the value of those NFTs or make it harder to trade them.
So the rules of the game could change.
Exactly.
And that could affect my investment.
And are there any other risks specific to Stockblock NFTs?
That I should know about.
Yeah. Well, there's something called platform dependence.
Oh, okay.
Right now, these Stockblock NFTs are mainly traded on Ritz Group's own exchange. So your ability to buy or sell depends on that platform's stability and security.
So if something happens to the exchange, like a technical problem, or God forbid, a security breach,
right,
my investment could be affected.
Yep. And like with any digital asset, there's the risk of hacking and theft. Security is paramount, strong passwords, two-factor authentication, store your NFTs in a secure wallet, don't click on shady links or share your private keys.
So while the blockchain itself might be secure, there are other vulnerabilities to be aware of.
For sure. And don't forget, this is still a relatively new and developing area. There will be bumps in the road and new challenges will pop up.
Yeah, it's exciting, but it's important to stay grounded and approach this cautiously.
Exactly. Don't let the hype get to you. Do your research and invest responsibly.
Well said. Okay. So we've covered the potential downsides, but I want to zoom out a bit. What are the bigger implications of these Stockblock NFTs for the future of investing? Do you think this could really go mainstream?
It's definitely possible. It's still early days, but the potential is huge.
Yeah.
Imagine a world where anyone, no matter how much money they have or who they know, can invest in promising startups.
That's a really cool idea.
It could really democratize wealth creation like never before.
Yeah, I like that.
And it's not just about individual investors either. It could revolutionize how companies raise capital.
How so?
Think about the traditional fundraising process. It can be super slow, expensive, and full of middlemen who all take a cut. With Stockblock NFTs, companies could potentially bypass some of those gatekeepers and connect directly with investors all over the world.
So it could streamline the whole investment process and make it more efficient.
It's about reducing friction and creating a more level playing field. But we gotta be real, there are challenges.
Like
regulatory clarity is a big one. Governments are still trying to wrap their heads around how to regulate crypto assets and blockchain technology. It's a moving target.
Yeah.
So there's a risk that regulators could step in and unintentionally stifle innovation, which would be a bummer. There are also technical challenges. Scaling blockchain technology to handle millions of transactions is no small feat.
Right. I've heard about the scalability issues with some cryptocurrencies. Is that a big hurdle for Stockblock NFTs as well?
Scalability is a challenge for the entire blockchain space, but bright minds are working on it, and we're seeing progress all the time. It's not a matter of if, but when these challenges will be overcome.
So you're optimistic.
I am. I think we'll see a lot of really cool developments in the next few years. Innovation usually moves faster than regulation.
It usually does.
Now, while we focused on the potential benefits and challenges, we also have to acknowledge that every investment involves risk. Let's dive into those risks associated with Stockblock NFTs so our listener can make an informed decision.
All right, let's get into those risks specific to Stockblock NFTs.
Yeah.
We've talked about general risks with investing and the regulatory landscape. What about the risks unique to this type of investment?
One that comes to mind is volatility. Private company valuations can swing a lot even more than public companies.
Yeah.
So the value of your Stockblock NFT could go way up or way down pretty quickly.
Not for the risk averse.
Right, you got to be ready for a wild ride.
Okay.
Another one is liquidity. While these Stockblock NFTs are supposed to be easier to trade than traditional private equity, there's still a chance you might not be able to sell yours quickly or at the price you'd like.
Yeah, that makes sense. If there aren't many people buying or selling a particular company's Stockblock NFTs, it could be tough to find a buyer.
Exactly. And even though Ritz Group Holdings is holding the actual stock as a custodian, there's still a theoretical risk of what's called counterparty risk.
That's counterparty risk.
It basically means if something were to happen to Ritz Group Holdings, it could impact your NFTs.
Okay.
It could affect their value or your ability to cash them in.
So you're saying it's important to look into the financial health of the custodian?
Absolutely, just like with any investment.
Got it. I'm also wondering about the long-term implications. If this really takes off.
Yeah.
Could there be any unintended consequences if Stockblock NFTs become super popular?
That's a great question, and to be honest, experts are still debating that. One concern is market manipulation. What if a small group of investors got their hands on a huge chunk of a company's Stockblock NFTs?
Well,
They could influence the price or even take control of the company.
so it's like any other market, there's always a chance of people trying to game the system.
Right. And as with any new technology, there could be challenges we haven't even thought of yet.
Makes sense. It's exciting, but unpredictable.
Exactly. You got to stay informed and be ready to adapt.
This has been a really eye-opening deep dive.
It has.
We've looked at the potential benefits, the risks, and the big picture implications of these Stockblock NFTs.
Yeah.
It feels like we're seeing a real shift in how we think about owning equity in companies.
It's a fascinating time to be an investor, for sure.
So for everyone listening, what's the key takeaway here?
I think the most important thing is to approach this new world of investing with a good balance of excitement and caution. Do your research, understand the risks, and invest responsibly.
And remember, the world of finance is always changing. Stay curious, stay informed, and don't be afraid to embrace the future of investing.
Well said. It's been great exploring this with you.
Likewise. And thanks to everyone for joining us on this deep dive into Stockblock NFTs and democratized capital. We hope you learned a lot and that it gave you some food for thought.
See you next time.